Hi, I'm Tim Ellis, and thank you for joining us for Laneway Live. Tonight's guest has long been a favourite on the Melbourne magic scene, and now he's a bona fide international magic superstar. Please welcome Dom Chambers. Dom Chambers.
Hey.
Where are you right now?
I'm at home.
Home in Melbourne?
By home, I'm in Melbourne, at my parents' house. It's awesome.
Wow. So all the people who've been following you at the moment, they're thinking, wow, what's Dom been up to? Last we heard, he was the 2010 junior champion of Magic in Australia. What's he been doing?
Yeah, I decided to quit Magic after that. That was the peak. I figured there's no further that I can go once I've won both categories of the Australian Junior Championships. So, yeah, just been chilling since then, Tim. How about you?
No, I'm still trying to get it. I'm still trying to get the junior championship.
Oh, you never won it?
I never won it, no.
Damn.
I did win.
This year's your year.
I have to admit, I did win 1980 Teenage Magician of the Year.
You were a teenager in 1980?
Yes, I was. Thank you for that.
Anyway, how are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you, Tim.
I haven't seen you since ages and ages, but you have been so busy. You got snatched up, of course, as we know, by America's Got Talent and whisked away to compete in that massive entertainment machine. What happened?
Exactly what you just said. Was snatched up by America's Got Talent and competed in the entertainment machine. Yeah. That was what, over a year ago was when I first filmed with America's Got Talent, my first audition, which was my beer act. That was filmed in, I think, late Feb, early March, I think, from if my memory's not, somewhere around then. So that's
and you had to keep it secret.
I did. That was quite a challenge, actually. I forgot about that. But yeah, because it was a long period of time between your filming and the show going to air. In fact, I'd already filmed 2 rounds of the competition before any episode went to air. So I had to keep all of that a complete secret.
Yeah, I remember you came into the laneway here and were chatting about it. And I think that's when you first revealed, hey, I've just filmed 2 episodes for America's Got Talent. I need a third.
Oh, and I hadn't told you that I've been on the show at all.
That's right.
That's impressive. I keep things secret from you until I need your help, apparently.
But I remember that we had such a great jam session. You had so many ideas, and it was so fantastic to see them come to life on the stage, on the TV.
Yeah, actually, and that third act in particular is one of the things that I am most proud of ever. But it was like just such an incredible collaboration of ideas and people. Like, yeah, there were so many people invested in that third act. Like, you could just feel people. I had people like yourself calling me up every day. I've got another idea. And then I had people who were actually over there with me building things up until the very last second, just for about it ended up being like 5 minutes of entertainment. So yeah. So it was a good time.
Yeah, taking it step by step. First of all, there was the beer act, and I assume they'd seen you on Penn and Teller Fool Us and said, hey, we've got to get this guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I did the beer act on Penn and Teller Fool Us, got a call from them after that, asking if I'd be on the show. So I decided to sort of redesign the act a little bit, add a few little things, tidy it up a little bit. And then that was the act that has been viewed by the most amount of people, probably the crowd favorite of my bits. So they threw that on first and it went well.
It went absolutely viral, and to the extent
that was my dad in the background. And here is my dog. So guest appearances.
I'll, I'll have to add them to the guest tonight's guest. You tell
So
me the websites and I'll add them in as well.
so basically, yeah, go on America's Got Talent and you will still end up living with your parents is the moral of this story.
At least you get a dog.
Great dog.
So your first one went totally viral. It was seen by millions and millions of people all over the world. It even had a few imitators.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. Is that still up? Is that still online?
It's
Have you?
gone. I'm sure it's gone. Yeah, I think he was he on Spain's Got Talent or something?
Yeah, Spain's Got Talent. There was a performer who just did my act, and it was quite. I was almost like impressed rather than mad. Like I remember I received a message from some Spanish magician who I didn't know, who said, "Hey, just want to let you know that a magician just did your act on Spain's Got Talent." And I read it and I was like, "Oh yeah. He's probably just like made a beer appear or done magic with beer, and this guy's overreacting." I'm like, "All right, let's see what it is." And then I saw it, and he actually did my act, and it was like the effort that this guy had gone through to copy what I'd come up with was crazy. And the fact that they had let it go on, like Spain's Got Talent, that is also completely crazy. So if you, I'm not so convinced that it's not online anymore. I think people could still probably find it because I know it did get quite a lot of views as well. So worth checking out because it's quite. I don't know. It's just bizarre, and I do see the funny side in it.
Yeah, well, the we did have a chat with the guy, and he was like, I offered my normal act, and they liked it, but then they said, oh, what about this? And he sort of had this cagey response that he was sort of doing an act like that, and they said, why don't you make beers appear or something? And then in the end, he said they put AC/DC music underneath it as well.
Yeah, I don't know how true that version of events is, to be honest. I think there was also a bit of confusion in the communication with this guy with sort of some language barriers, but I think there was a little bit of like, I think there was a, I don't know how much I can say, but I think there may have been a joint effort between two different parties for it to happen.
I think so. Then your next act was the amazing SIRI act. I can tell that your wonderful prop that you spent ages making was smashed by Virgin Airlines on the way over.
I'd spent so long. I'd never put more effort. I was not sleeping. I'd spent money on it. I had other people helping me to make this happen for my second round act, and I'd never put more just emotional and physical energy into something. And it was going to be great. It was really going to be great. And I get to the other side, and thank you, Virgin. My prop is in like pieces, and it was a solid prop as well, but padded and wrapped and so carefully packed. And I don't know how it got to that stage. So that meant I had, I think, a week between landing. Oh, it was less than a week, maybe like 5 days, 5 days between landing and doing the performance to come up with something in its place, which I did. I actually did come up with a solution to be able to still do what I had originally planned, thanks to a bit of help from Simon Coronel, who was in LA at the time, which was really convenient. We came up with a ripping solution to this problem, which was probably better than the original solution that I'd come up with, the solution that was destroyed by Virgin. But I think this is probably where this part of the story ends.
But it was a wonderfully received routine, and perhaps more wonderfully received by the live audience than the what we thought in the end.
Yeah, I think the people who watched it live probably had a better time than the people who watched it on TV.
But it was
In all seriousness, though, about that second act, that was probably the one, not the one thing, but that was probably the theme that one of my biggest like disappointments and biggest, I wouldn't say call it a failure, but to as anyone knows who's in our industry, like so often we work really, really, really hard on a project to see it flop, and that's just part of the nature of our industry, right?
Yeah.
You've been there, we've all been there, but there are some that hurt more than others. Like there are some where you really think it's going to be something incredible, and you put in everything,
Mm.
and then for whatever reason, it doesn't come to fruition, or it just doesn't work for you. And that was one of those moments.
But
But
thankfully,
like you said, the act itself did come out well.
mm,
What was shown on TV, it looked great.
mm.
And yeah,
And thankfully got you through to the next round where you had your, I think like your trademark effect with the interactive touch the screen and follow the different people, eliminate the different DOMs. I mean, that was one of your early pieces you put online, and it got millions and millions of views.
yeah. Well, actually, that was to turn that into the physical live performance. That was sparked from a chat that we had. I remember at South Bank, we were sitting in the bar in South Bank, and it had crossed my mind, but I hadn't really thought much further than this sort of fleeting thought, I suppose, the original thought of turning into a live performance. But yeah, it was a video I made with different emojis, and it was based on, you know, some classical sort of interactive magic trick. Hold your finger on the screen, I'll predict where it lands. And I have a mixed, sorry?
I'll put the link down there.
Oh yeah, sure. I can see it. There it is. You can. I have a mixed relationship with this type of trick. I do remember the first time that I did it. It was like a completely mind-shattering experience, and I think we have to remember that with a lot of magic is trying to go back in time and sort of relive the emotions and the relive the experience that you went through when you saw a trick.
Are you saying it doesn't age well, or we forget about that amazing moment that we had when we first saw it?
No, I think we forget. I mean, it can be both, but I think in this case, I think you can forget about the amazing moment when you first saw it. I think especially with these ones, because you've seen them done a lot in different ways. You think, oh, it's one of these things. People are too smart for them. Everyone's seen it. Everyone's done it. But when you do that for the first time, it is completely it's completely mind blowing. Now, but that said, a lot of people now have seen these type of tricks, and I think the amount of people out there who haven't been exposed to one of those tricks perhaps is starting to get smaller. I don't know. As you know, was a lot of the feedback to that trick, but I think I was always very aware that was kind of how it was going to be and how people were going to take it.
Which is why it needed that kicker.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. The kicker, which was the TAPEFACE production. I was like, what?
It was so long ago.
Which again was something that came through just pure collaboration, and just I remember you would call me like 3 times a day with coming up brainstorming solutions for that. And sorry.
I still like the briefcase.
Yeah. Well, there was a reason why that didn't end up happening. What Tim's suggesting is, if you haven't seen the act, I made a AGT personality appear. His name was TAPEFACE, and one of the original ideas was that TAPEFACE was going to appear from like a briefcase. I was going to walk on with a briefcase, and at the end, he would just like climb out of this small briefcase.
He was your prediction.
And that was my prediction. Yeah, it was inside the briefcase, and he would climb out of it. Didn't end up happening for reasons. But the solution that we came up with, which actually I owe mostly to Simon Coronel, made in a hotel room, a small hotel room. Myself, Simon, and Ruben Morland, good buddy of mine from New York, awesome magician. Check out his stuff. We sat in a hotel room up until like 2 a.m. with bits of fabric and setting up little cameras and different angles, testing us, running across the room, seeing if we could make this thing work. And we were staying up until I think maybe 4 a.m. every night to get this thing going. The night before the show, we're sitting there with a Sharpie marker, writing out the prediction with ruled lines. And we didn't actually test or rehearse the production until the morning of the performance in the hotel corridor with TAPEFACE himself. It was madness.
And it was so good that he was
And
willing to jump in and have fun with you.
he was so great, and he was perfect because he got there and he was just like, yeah, I'll go with it, whatever. I think he kind of trusted us. He trusted our vision, and he just did it, and he absolutely nailed it. We did one rehearsal before the performance with him, and he just got it, and we're a little bit, was okay. He got it first go. It's like, we've got one other go, will he? And he just couldn't have done a better job.
And it was live, of course.
Yeah, totally live. So no room for error.
As the pressure must have been on.
Yeah, that was probably one of the highest pressure environments I've ever been in. I remember a moment of just like it was almost like a moment of like intense clarity, almost like I'm trying to find a better word than enlightenment. But when I was standing on the stage, it was at the Dolby Theatre in front of, like, you know, there's thousands there, let alone like millions of people watching this live at home. I remember standing there just holding this prediction tube, which would end up being the finale of the trick, just looking out and just kind of just for a split second, I think my brain just sort of registered what was about to happen. Like, the build up had been so intense and so fast paced, but I had this just moment of just, okay, this is what this is. And I'll never forget that moment.
Wow. It's, I know for me in my career, I'd be like just going, I don't really want to put myself through that much stress.
Oh yeah, there were so many moments of that. Like, every single day, it was like, I'd be asking myself, is this worth it? Is it worth what I'm doing right now? In hindsight, yep.
And
Yep, it was.
what motivation kept you going? What was the motivation to keep you just going, I'm going to push through this?
I don't think I had a choice. I'd signed up to something. And when you sign up to something, you've got to follow through with it.
Dedication. Well, that
Yeah.
piece looked fantastic. And what I love was the fact that the people online who were commenting, oh, that's just a math trick. That's just a math trick. And there were a few, but a lot of people didn't know, they hadn't seen that sort of a trick before, and were really amazed that, you know, you could control where their fingers ended up and who they pointed at. But because TAPEFACE appeared at the end, all the people, oh, this is a math trick. All the people were saying, but how did TAPEFACE appear? And that was just
Yeah, it almost didn't matter. It almost didn't matter. And that was something that I've learned from other acts since then as well, that so much doesn't matter if what you do at the end is so striking, and or the other way around, if what you do at the end is so poor, then the previous stuff before that can all be forgotten as well if it's really great. So nailing that finish is important. But I do, like, again, I haven't watched that back for a while, that TAPEFACE performance, but I'm just so proud of all the little details, all the little bits and pieces. And
the beer
even though, again, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of these point to a thing tricks, trying to remember how great they are, I'm not the biggest fan of them, but as a whole routine, I think that's something I'll always look back on and be pretty proud of.
It was so good. It was so good. And then, of course, you had your semi-final, which had, I think, I don't know, at that point, you were just happy to be there. You weren't stressing out anymore.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. I think at that point I relaxed a little bit, and but the pressure was still on. Like, you're in this environment where you're now given like a week to come up with a brand new act. And I say a brand new act because, you know, a lot of the magic that I do is not necessarily tailored for television or appropriate for television, or just maybe not good enough for television.
But you do have to create
And
something unique. Otherwise, you know, people are just like, we've seen this before.
that's right. And that was sort of the approach that I took, was sort of a go hard or go home approach, was to take some big risks and not play it safe with things that I already do and already have, but really try and create something. You know, you get an opportunity to go in front of that sort of audience like once in your life. So you really want to make the most of it. I think anyway. So I think at that point, like you said, yeah, I was maybe a little more relaxed, but that didn't mean that I wasn't going to work as hard as I possibly could or aim to create something really, really great and special. which we really did try and do. We being myself and Ruben, who was still there at the time, and also Simon Coronel, who was offering ideas and notes remotely via a cruise ship. But yeah, that was one of the toughest weeks that week, actually. Again,
yeah, that one was your.
sorry.
For those who don't know, that one was your optical illusions. Some of the optical illusions that had gone viral, like you're drinking the 3 beers really quickly, and then you stepped up. You did a prediction effect and introduced the mega beer.
That's right, the old mega beer, the infamous mega beer. And that's one of those, it was a routine that on paper I was so proud of. Like, I was really, really proud of. It had all the bits. It had, like live optical illusions, which I thought was really cool and creative and original, I suppose. And then it had a couple of cool visual close-up moments. It had a prediction, and it had sort of this big gag illusion going on as well. So on paper, you've got all of these bits within like a 5-minute time space. Like that should be a really, really solid act. And 90% of that act, we're really proud of what we came up with. But again, it's one of those things, like, as you know, or any performer knows, you never know what a piece is going to be like until you've properly tested it out in front of an audience. And not only tested it out, but you've done it dozens of times to fine tune it and tweak it, to figure out the good bits, the not so good bits, how to make things better. And when you're creating a new act in a week, you don't have that luxury. You create a thing, you take a gamble and hope that, things are going to land in your favor. And I think this act, we didn't quite get the vision that we had in mind. With the time that we had, the amount of rehearsal and modifications that we were allowed, we didn't quite, the vision that we had in mind didn't quite come to fruition. But we're still pretty proud of, like, coming up with something to that scale. And I think, it had a lot of creative moments that we can be pretty proud of.
I know the big, I suppose, disappointment for me was the fact that the audience didn't quite get it, in the sense that the response seemed to be like, he didn't really drink the beer. And it's like, yeah, it's a gag. So they were sort of expecting to be fooled at the end by a magician and not just entertained.
Yeah, and perhaps that's fair enough. And that's a lesson that we can learn from that. I suppose that's like what I was talking about before, the ending. You got to stick that landing, because if you don't stick the landing, then everything that came before that is can be forgotten. And I think you won't mind me saying this as well, but Eric, good buddy of mine, Eric Chen, who was FISM champion, one of the great close-up magicians ever.
Brilliant.
In the same round, he created an act which didn't go as he had planned as well in terms of the audience responses. And I think people forgot a lot of the great stuff that happened within that act because they didn't fully get the ending. But yeah, I think that's fair. I think people are fair to have that criticism. They when they see a magic act, I think a lot of people want magic, and they're not. If it isn't, then they think it's not good, which I guess makes sense.
But it's just funny, like, to think in retrospect, if you'd sort of just done the beer and then finished with the prediction, it could have been completely different. But
which is one of the things that we did discuss and nearly did. So yeah,
that's strange. But in the end, you ended up standing on stage during the grand final announcements, and they were choosing who was eliminated, who was going forward. How was that? I mean, that must be. I mean, they draw it out so long on the TV. It must be worse live.
Yeah, and you stand on the stage the whole time. You're standing on stage, and eventually, they'll call your name forward, and it's pretty excruciating. But I think I was at peace at that point. I think both times I was. The only time I was particularly nervous was the second round. The second round, which they call the judge cuts, which isn't in front of a live audience. That was excruciating. I was basically on the verge of an emotional breakdown during that second round. But I think those live announcements, I was kind of either way. I think the first round I was just very happy that the piece came off how how it had, and I was going to accept whatever result came my way. Second time, I was pretty sure I knew the outcome, so I wasn't feeling that nervous about it.
And then
the outcome being not going through.
And then you did also meet a lot of amazing people and make some fantastic connections during your time with AGT.
Oh yeah. I don't need to tell you who Cody Lee is, but he's like, yeah, a once in a lifetime talent. Ryan Niemiller, who is hysterical, really, really funny on and off stage. So, you know, I met all these amazing contestants, but also got to meet some pretty cool people like Terry Crews, which I think that is the person that people are most envious of that I got to hang out with and spend time with. And I can say as cool in real life as you would ever imagine. Like the greatest guy.
You guys went out and hung out a lot, you know, after the show?
All the time.
Is he
Still
there?
do.
Is he there now? With you at your house? Quarantining?
Yeah, he's just chilling, just hanging out, doing some chin-ups. Gonna go do some
I can imagine
squats with him later.
I can imagine Terry Crews doing chin-ups just without hands, just with his chin.
Yeah.
He's
Something like
a
that.
Great guy.
He's so ripped. Oh my God. That man is so ripped.
Does he work out at all? Because he doesn't look like he's got.
I'm guessing he does, Tim. I'm guessing he.
But he doesn't look like he's got time to work out. I mean, and he paints as well. There was one YouTube clip from AGT of just Terry Crews just sitting there painting for like an hour, and that was one of the highest rated clips.
Incredible man.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh, but anyway, your story did not end there, because then you went on to do The Illusionists on Broadway.
Yes, I did. And that's probably my proudest achievement and the greatest couple of months of my life. It was really amazing. I was living in a New York apartment, a block and a half from the theater, where we would do 1 to 3 shows a day of The Illusionist with the cast of the greatest people that I've met. And it was just amazing. That's all I can say about it. It was just such a great experience, and I miss it. Would love to go back and do it again, but I think that's one of those things that you might only get once in your life.
Well, it's everything's on pause at the moment. I mean, at least after Illusionist, you headed to Adelaide Fringe, where your shows were hugely successful.
So that was really good, getting to do my sort of one-man comedy show after doing the show with, and I love sort of collaboration, as I've spoken about before. And that's one of the great things about being on a sort of a car show like The Illusionist. You're doing it with people, you're doing it with friends, you're experiencing all the good times with people, you get to laugh about the bad times with the people. But I do love doing my own show as well for different reasons. So that was a nice treat, getting to do my 60-minute comedy magic show at the Adelaide Fringe Festival, which is an awesome festival. I'm hoping that this is all over by the time that comes around next year, because it's one of the highlights of my year.
But the coronavirus hit like in the last week of the festival. So did that start to affect the sales?
Well, funny enough, I finished my season with 1 week to go in the festival, so I snuck out just in time to. By all reports, it did have an impact on sales. For those of you who don't know, the Adelaide Fringe has 2 kind of main hubs. I should step back a little bit. It's an open festival where anyone can put on a show. That's sort of the nature of what a Fringe festival is. Anyone can sign up, anyone can do a show, and anywhere can be a venue. You can have a bar that is a venue. You can have a library that is a venue. I could turn my house into a venue and put it in the Fringe Guide if I wanted to. There are 2 sort of main hubs there that are sort of on open parkland, and they turn them into sort of like mini festivals each night with rides and food trucks, but also like a dozen pop-up theaters or sort of tents, circus, the Spiegels, studios, and those main hubs, they erupt every night. People just fly down to them, thousands and thousands of people to have a drink, have a bit to eat, to see a show, to hang out with friends. And apparently on those last couple of weeks, it was just, yeah, just, 50% of what you'd expect. Ticket sales were down, numbers were down, but that was the beginning of it all. Little did we know what it was going to turn into.
And how much worse it gets as far as cancellations go. And so you had a whole lot of shows lined up. You had lots of tours, all sorts of things lined up that you can't talk about at this point, but they were all ready to go and they all just disappeared.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Like everyone else, all my shows have been cancelled. And yeah, I guess we don't know how long this is going to last for, but until then, we'll just, I take it as an opportunity, I suppose, to have some time to be creative, to make some plans, to reassess and jump back into it once it's all done with, I guess.
And you've been doing that in a way that is creative, reassesses, and also keeps your profile up with your project, The Scraps.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason for that, there was no reason for this project other than just to keep myself occupied and just to keep myself sort of creatively stimulated, I suppose. I haven't for a long time just had the time to just create. When things do get busy, when you are doing shows, when you have, when you're working kind of project to project and there's a different one, at the end of each month, you're so focused on those goals, you're never just sort of left there to just be creative for the sake of being creative. And yes, I just decided to start making some videos. And the challenge was to create, dumb videos based on dumb notes that I found on my iPhone. And, most of them are pretty average. Some of them were better than I could have anticipated. But yeah, the only reason for that, Tim, like I said, was just to create. That's it.
But
And I kind of have, there's something kind of like liberating about not having shows or anything to worry about. Like, I feel like right now I can put out stuff that makes me laugh and not really care about anything else, because I don't know, why would you, when there's so much going on in the world, like there's nothing to worry about when it comes to your own little tricks, right? Like,
they're
you're
getting
just
fantastic
reminded of
reactions. They're getting really great reactions. I'll put the link down there for people who want to find them. But the feedback I've been looking at, people love them. They love the scraps.
well, there you go. That's I mean, that's always nice. That's always nice.
You have to please yourself, and sometimes if you do please yourself instead of worrying about the audience, you end up finding something new. And I love the fact that you have over the last year, you've sort of really started to define your own unique identity in the world of magic and entertainment.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a bit of part of my like philosophy, is do stuff that I think would be funny. I think that yeah, I don't know. I think that magic has been very, very safe for a long period of time. Like, comedy magic is just like, it's all the same. It's just like, this is what comedy magic is. And a lot of comedy magic doesn't really make me laugh, or I'm not into it. Therefore, I'm not going to do it myself. So I think that's something that I've always decided to do, is I'm just going to do the things that I think would be funny and hope that other people find it funny too. And don't get me wrong, if I do something, if I come up with an idea that I think is hilarious and then the audience is like, Dom, that's terrible, I'm going to listen to the audience and stop doing it. The challenge is to try and find, like you said, you want to please yourself, but also please the audience at the same time.
But then with the scraps, you don't have to worry. You can just, even if the audience don't like it, you can just put it up there anyway.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Like, I will put it out there and I will hardly check to see the response. As soon as I've created a thing and it's out there, for me, it's complete. That's done. It's not coming back. I'm not going to revisit these ideas. And that's sort of the refreshing, liberating feeling that I'm getting from this project.
There won't be a Scraps live show?
No, there will not. There will be no season 2. There will be one round of Scraps. And I'll say here as well, I'm in an era. My original plan was to do 10 videos. I was going to do 10 scraps. So that means I was going to take 10 notes from my iPhone. Just to explain the premise as well. I write, if I have an idea, no matter how stupid or great the note is, I will just jot it down in my notes.
Which is great
And
advice for everyone.
yeah, I think so. I think it's important to write things down, because you think you'll remember things, but you never do. Like my iPhone notes, they're just full of it's just rubbish, like really, really weird screenshots. And a lot of them I've got to get better actually at writing down what my thought is, because I can't work out what it is. But I basically, the premise is I go through my iPhone notes and I dig out an old note that never actually got acted on or turned into something in my show, and I form a video out of it. And some of the notes are just completely stupid, and I like that challenge as well, of just seeing whether I can turn a stupid note into something that is, I don't know, interesting or entertaining. And that's the premise. But so what I was going to say was, I was planning on doing 10 of these videos, 10 days in a row. And then for some reason, when I posted about what I was going to do, I wrote 2 weeks. So that's 14 days. And I felt by that point, I would look like a coward if I backed down from the challenge I presented to myself. But right now, today's maybe the 10th day, and I'm wishing that this was my last day, because I'm running very thin on ideas. So
I love the fact that you have that stickability. It's the same that you showed with the world's longest magic show. You sort of committed to the idea, and then we're like, what have I got myself into?
Yeah. I think once you start something, like what you're doing right now, Tim, like I said that to you as well, doing these Laneway live shows. You've said there's been a lot of time and effort for you, but like you don't have to do these, but you said you were going to do them, and you've stuck to it. And I think being consistent says a lot.
And also you actually get things happen that you don't expect when you stick to something. Things will come out of it that you didn't realize would happen as a benefit.
And not always. Not always. A lot of the time you do things for the sake of doing things, and you put it out there, or whatever it is, you just let it be, and nothing happens. And that, for a lot of the time, is perfectly okay. And I think so much of the time you've got to do things without wanting or expecting anything to come out of it.
Well,
if you go into something, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, the least is that I'm learning something new about all my friends. Every time I do these interviews, I'm learning little things about them and going, wow, I didn't know that. And for me, that makes it worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a more than worthy goal, I think.
But do you have something to show us from the scraps before we go?
I do, and I do apologize. The sort of requested a while ago that I showed this, and it has been released as a scrap since. And this came out as a scrap because it wasn't necessarily a new thing, but I had this note sticking in my iPhone for a long time to make a change to this trick that I've been doing for a while with Monopoly money. So this is like an improvement on an old trick that was pulled out of my notes, something that has been sitting there and that I've been intending to do for a while, which uses Monopoly money. Funny enough, the only money that I actually have at the moment is Monopoly money. But we can do a little. And we can all go home happy. Hooray. Oh, you want me? You're sitting there like you want more. Okay, I'll give you more. There we go. Watch. We'll do it gradually this time. To the top. That's the middle. That's the entire note, every single one, front and back. You know what? Performing magic over Skype is actually quite difficult. I have to say, there's something, and we're talking about this before about people who are trying to do live magic shows. It's something that you have to learn. You can't just go and do it. It is a new skill. It is a new skill. Learning how to connect with an audience through a camera. Like, do you pause for applause? Like, what do you do at the end of a trick?
Well, I've been watching all the Late Show guys, Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and all these guys doing their monologues and going blah 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 blah. blah, 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 just waiting for applause,
Yeah.
reactions. It's must be killing them at the moment. They just can't wait to get back to a live environment. Though I have to admit, at the moment, it feels a little bit like adapt or die to an extent. You know, you sort of, it's a new paradigm that we have to somehow embrace, or just sit back and wait until it's over.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, do you mean like adapt and we should all be doing like live shows and things? Like that's going to be the new,
I
is that
don't
what you're
think. I
suggesting?
don't think. Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think everybody has to, but I think if you are in the situation where either one, you miss your audiences so much and you really want to perform, or two, you need the money, then the only real option you have at the moment is online shows, unless you have a line of merchandise or lectures or something that you can sell. So for performers, and most of us have no tangible skills whatsoever, apart from standing on stage and pretending we're super powerful magicians. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you're right.
you either get with what we've got and make the best of it, or you sit back and wait it out.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I think I think it's a good time to try and be creative and come up with a thing that other people aren't doing. Like I think you know, the obvious solution right now is to set up a webcam or set up a camera and say, I'm going to do live card tricks, or I'm going to do, you know, or whatever it is, without really thinking about this new medium, about what it is, about why people might want to actually log in and see a live magic show as opposed to watching Netflix. Because the thing is, there's still content. There's no shortage of content out
Mm,
there.
absolutely.
Like there's still Netflix. There's still HBO whilst this thing's going on. So you've got to come up with something that people are actually going to want.
Yeah.
And yeah, or like I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that people are going to want to tune in to a live show because they can interact. Maybe you have to make it interactive. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
Though I have to
But
say, your scraps are taking the world by storm. They're going really, really well, because they're different, they're fresh, you know, and that's why you've had such success, because you are a bright, beery spark in the world of magic.
do you say a beery spark?
Yes, you can use that on your
Can I
quote.
add that to my website? Okay, yeah. Okay, perfect. Great. Yeah, done.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much.
Thanks. Appreciate that. Thank you for having me, Tim. And great job with this project. I've enjoyed tuning in, and keep it up. How much longer are you planning on doing these for?
Until the pandemic is over.
One a day. One a day until the pandemic is over.
Though I do have a plan B as well, so stay tuned.
Well, is that actually your goal, to do one a day until this is over?
That is my original brief, but I am nothing if not flexible.
Okay, all right. You heard it here first. When on an interview where we've discussed how important it is to commit and follow through, Tim has pitched that he's going to do this every day until this is over. So, good luck.
See you later. Bye bye.
See you, Tim.